Can you talk a little bit about the basic structure of FarmOS and how you decided to slice and dice the operations and the bits and pieces of a typical farm?
Sure, yeah. So when I was starting to think through record keeping in general, my first thought was that everything is essentially an event in time. So we needed an entity type in the system, in the data architecture, to represent events essentially. So I started with this concept of logs, where logs are events that occur at a specific time, and they are either done or they're not done. So you can have log entries in the future, and you can have log entries in the past. And then as you're going through, they kind of come up in your to-do list and your plan here, and you just select them and say whether they're done or not done. You can also reschedule, assign them, clone them, that kind of thing. So FarmOS is really primarily structured around this concept of logs. As we were building that out, it became obvious that we needed to represent. We needed higher level entities to represent other things too. So areas and assets and people all kind of come together to create this this system as it is now. And you can kind of think of that as the where, the what, the when, and the who. So areas are all of the geometries that you have for your different field boundaries, but they can also be non-mapped areas. So if you just need to reference that, you have a room in a house or something, or if you're doing growing inside, you don't necessarily need to use the mapping features of FarmOS. They're there to help and to provide some geo features for larger farms that need that, but it's not necessary. So you can see on this map here, you can map out your different fields, and I'll show you the layers here. You've got greenhouses, buildings, paddocks, fields, water, landmark, properties. You can switch between Google Hybrid and OpenStreetMap, and we can also integrate other layers like the NRCS soil survey layer to pull in data from their servers, which is really helpful, I think. That gets used in the soil test logs a little bit more. So that's kind of what areas are all about. It's just another type of entity to allow you to relate where things are happening. So logs can reference areas that they occur in. Assets are kind of the things that you're dealing with. So farms will typically have plantings that they have. Many farms also manage livestock and animals. Equipment can also be managed in FarmOS, as well as I said before, sensors. And new types can be added too. So that's another key point about FarmOS, is it's a modular system. You can add modules and turn them on and off based on what your operation requires. So in this case, this is a farm up in Maine called Wolf's Neck Farm. They're a research farm. I've been working with them to set up sensors that collect environmental data and stream that into FarmOS so that they can see information about their soil moisture and temperature and that kind of thing. So then, as I said, logs are the primary records that kind of show what has happened over time. So really, it's just about creating this stream of activity records. Activity log, there's different types of logs. So activities are kind of the most general. If it doesn't fall into another category, you generally enter it as an activity. You can also have harvest logs and input logs, maintenance for equipment, medical records for your animals. Observation logs are a really nice general purpose log type used for just recording various observations on the farm. So if you go out in your field and you see that your seeds are germinating, you can record that as an observation, and you can record what the germination rate is at that time. It's very flexible, so you can make any kind of observations you want, and you can categorize them so that you can find them again later. Similarly with most log types.
Mike, so sorry, just real quick. One of the key features I think is worth highlighting with the logs, and in particular what you're just referring to as the observation. If you click on that, I think showing that the date and time auto-populates, because
yeah. So with the observation logs, I can come in here and click Add an Observation. And you'll see that the date here is already populated to the current time. And so I can say winter rye germination rate. And you can link that to the winter rye asset that you have in your planting, and you can link it to certain areas where that rye is. This is where you would kind of say, this is what my germination rate is. And you can draw geometries with each log too. So I can say that, you know, maybe this area is germinating well, this area is a little spottier, that kind of thing. And then logs can be done or not done. As I said earlier, they're either in the future or in the past.
And if you wanted to snap a picture, you could attach that as a file there?
That's right, yeah. So it's important to note too that, and we'll see if this comes through on the screen share, but FarmOS is made to work on any size device. So if you load it up on your phone, you'll be able to come in here and use the camera on your phone to snap a photograph and attach it to that observation log. So you can have a photo record over time of pretty much anything you want on the farm. So it really gives farmers the flexibility to keep records on what they want to keep records on or what they're required to keep records on. If you are personally interested in watching, for example, germination rates over time, or you know, comparing different crops, you can set up your own studies within FarmOS and you know, think about how you want to collect that data over time. So I think that's another important point, is that FarmOS can be leveraged by scientists and researchers as well, who are working with farmers to collect data and analyze that over time, simply by just agreeing upon which records they want and how to record that in a regular fashion so that that data is available. So it's more than just a record keeping system, it's also a data collection system.
And I think another key point to make is maybe as we get into the people portion here is with different, you know, with somewhat larger farms with more employees and even more managers, specialized managers, different people will really be getting into records at in different areas at different levels. And so, you know, the wholesale manager, for example, may not be so into germination rate, but the field production manager definitely would be, and vice versa. So yeah, that might be a interesting thing to highlight as well. The concept is great, and I really like the topology and terminology. It's so clean and makes so much sense. And
great.
Yeah, I mean the where, the what, the when, and the who, and within logs, it's really what and how, isn't it?
Yeah, with the logs, you're relating the when to the what and the how and the where. Yeah. Exactly.
Great.
Yep. So one of the great aspects of FarmOS is this ability to have different user logins and sort of managing people within your farm. So this is just another example farm site that we have set up. I can go in here and say add a person. I can say my name is Mike. My email address is mike@farmier.com. I'll just add test password. And then you can give people different roles. So we have 3 roles currently: farm manager, farm worker, and farm viewer. Farm manager has full access to everything in FarmOS. So they can add records, they can edit records, they can view everything, and they can make changes to some of the core configuration options in FarmOS. Workers are similar. They can view records, edit records, add records, but they can't change some of the more global configuration options. Viewers have read-only access, so they can log into FarmOS and they can view records and they can browse around and see what's going on in the farm, but they can't add records or edit or delete anything. So the use case for viewers, there are a lot of different use cases, one of which is certifying agents for organic certification. You can give them a login to your site so they can come in and review your records remotely over the internet. Or if you have customers or some nonprofit farms that I work with have board members that they want to share their activities with, so they'll give them a login via the viewer role. So it's just a flexible way to kind of share access to the data in FarmOS, and that is a core concept that we're really starting with and really trying to work more towards in FarmOS, is this ability to share data and that data, and to have the ability to opt in to share that data. So by default, FarmOS is a private system. Just because it's open source doesn't mean that the data is available for everyone to see. The code is open source, meaning the code that runs the system is freely available for people to download and set up themselves. But if you set it up, you're the only one that has access to that data. And so we believe farmers should own their own data and should be able to choose who they share that data with. So this idea of being able to opt into sharing, I think, is a very core element of FarmOS, and it's going to be used more and more as we continue to build features and APIs moving forward, so that programs, other tools, other digital software programs can integrate with FarmOS and connect to it and use the data that is shared to add value and perform additional specialized operations.
So an API is the way one program talks to another, essentially?
That's right. Yep, so APIs are essentially a connection point and a form of communication between two different computer software systems. It stands for Application Programming Interface. So it just defines a standardized way for two systems to communicate with one another and send data back and forth.
Great, thank you.
So just continuing with the user demonstration here, I can create a new account and it will send a message to that new user, which is me, and then I would be able to log in as a farm manager there. So you can see I've got two users in here, and they're both farm managers. I could add more and give them different access control permissions.
Can you just walk through what it looks like to get that a new user email and what you do with that?
Sure. Absolutely. So I should see that email come in. There it is. So you would see an email that looks like this. An administrator created an account for you at test, and test would be your farm name if that was it. So you'll have a link here that'll be a one-time user link. It'll reset the password for you and allow you to set it again. So I'm just going to open this in a separate window. So then you'll see this, reset password. You have successfully validated your email address. This is a one-time login link. Click this button to log in and change your password. This login can be used only once. So there I am. I'm logged in now, and it brings me right to my user page where I can reset my password to something more secure. I can save that and go to the dashboard.
And you're off and running. Great.
And I'm off and running. Yep. So maybe I should talk a little bit about the assets and kind of jumping
so just to regroup. So we've been through areas, which is the where, assets, which is the what, logs, which connect when and how, and really everything, and then people, which is how you determine who's active in the system and what they're doing, right?
Yeah, and a good way I would think to talk about it is sort of areas, assets, and people are kind of these Platonic ideals. They're these things that exist almost outside of time, and then the logs are what contextualize those things in time with specific events.
Great.
Yeah.
Great.
So areas and assets and people can all change over time, and that's sort of represented in logs.